Welcome back to College Football Addiction. TJ Pittenger here, and we're talking about the seismic shift from the College Football Playoff Selection Committee, who just dropped a bombshell for the 2025-2026 season, doubling down on strength of schedule as a key factor in playoff rankings. Now, this is a big deal, and there's been a lot of talk on both sides about this through the offseason. I wasn't quite sure which way this would go. I didn't know if they would relent to the incessant whining that we've heard about it, but they did. So let's unpack it. Let's talk about some of the flaws, maybe give some pros, and call it like we see it. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. College football just days away, 2 days away if you're watching this on Thursday when I recorded it. So join us as we continue to grow. We appreciate those who already are subscribed. All right, let's start with the basics. What's changing? According to Brandon Marcello, the College Football Playoff Committee is tweaking its selection process starting this year. They're putting even more emphasis on strength of schedule, including and introducing a record strength metric. Pay attention to that. We'll come back to it in just a moment. This means they'll be rewarding teams for playing tough opponents, giving more credit for wins against elite teams, and get this, we'll come back to this too, reducing the penalty for losses to strong opponents. Essentially, it's not just about your win-loss record anymore. It's more about who you played and how you performed against them. In theory, this sounds fine, right? If one team plays a bunch of tough teams, you're going to lose more as you play tougher competition. And if you play a bunch of weak teams, yeah, you're going to stack up a lot of wins. But hold on. This change opens up a Pandora's box of problems. And I'm going to break it down why this is a disaster for college football. Now, like I said, I'm all for rewarding teams that challenge themselves. But the new focus on strength of schedule is riddled with issues. We're talking secrecy, bias, and a system that feels like it's being rigged from the outset. Let's dive into some of the biggest problems with the change. There is a lot to unpack here, so buckle up. First, the entire process, and proponents and people that are against this, I think you would all agree. You may hate the entire video. I think everyone would agree that the entire process happening behind closed doors is an issue. The College Football Playoff Committee isn't publishing a clear, objective formula like the BCS, like quarterback rating in the NFL that gets to 158.3. There's no formula for this strength of schedule or record strength. There's no spreadsheet. There's no algorithm. There's no KenPom style based metric like we see in basketball or RPI like we see in baseball. I'll get right back to ranting, but if you are watching this and you haven't stocked up for college football season, get your tail to alumnihall.com. Listen, in almost every major SEC city and several other ones, you can find Alumni Hall's gear in person, but if you're not close to one, go to alumnihall.com. Let them hook you up with our code CFA15 to save 15% on your order. If you order now, you should have things before the start of the season, I guess unless you're Iowa State or Kansas State, but go check out alumnihall.com. We appreciate them for their support. The very best and biggest selection of game day merchandise and apparel, alumnihall.com. CFA15 will save you 15%. It's just a group of people in a room deciding what strong means. That's a massive red flag. Without a discernible metric, how do we know that they're not just picking favorites? They're not just picking the biggest brands. This opacity screams potential collusion. Fans deserve to know, and programs deserve to know, how decisions are made, but instead we're left guessing. Imagine the NFL deciding playoff teams with no stats or metrics, just vibes. Well, that's what we're dealing with here. And when you combine that with the lack of accountability, it's a recipe for distrust. We need transparency, and the committee is giving us none of that. Issue number 2, let's talk about the elephant in the room, ESPN and the SEC. ESPN is the financial engine behind college football. And the SEC is their cash cow. Those massive TV deals, SEC games drive the ratings. And guess who's deeply tied to the college football playoff? Yes, ESPN. They broadcast the games. They fund the events. They have close connections to the selection committee. They literally hired somebody to follow the selection committee around and report on what they think is going to happen. This new focus on strength of schedule feels tailor-made to keep SEC teams in the playoff hunt, no matter their record. Why? Because a strong SEC means more viewers. It means more ad revenue, and it's more money for ESPN at the end of the day. It's no secret that the SEC gets preferential treatment, and this change cements that. If you're a fan of the Big Ten, the ACC, or a Big 12 team, you shouldn't be thrilled about this. The system was already tilted, and ESPN has just put its fingerprints all over, tilting it even more. The next issue, here's where it gets even messier. The SEC was already getting a huge boost from strength of schedule. I know they like to cry all offseason about how, man, our Alabama team was left out. How could this happen? But just look at the last 2 years. Last year, 2 lost teams like Georgia, Tennessee, and Texas were ranked ahead of 1 lost teams like Indiana and SMU before conference championship weekend. A 9-3 Alabama team was even ahead of a 10-2 Miami team in the rankings. Go back to 2023. Texas, who was in the Big 12 then, and Alabama made it over an undefeated team in Florida State to get into the college football playoff. The committee was already rewarding strength of schedule. They were already giving balance and fairness to teams that did play harder schedules. But now they felt the need to double down on this. The data shows plenty of SEC teams were getting plenty of love. This change feels less like fixing a problem and more like stacking the deck to ensure SEC dominance. It's not about fairness. It's about guaranteeing that a certain conference stays on top. Speaking of the SEC, the whole shift reeks of a response to their incessant whining. For the entire offseason, SEC coaches, fans, their media have complained about their tough schedules and how they weren't getting enough credit. They argued that 2 and 3 loss SEC teams should outrank undefeated or 1 loss teams from another conference, all because their strength of schedule was so much harder. And now the committee is bending over backward to give them what they want. And the rest of college football is just straight bending over and taking it. This isn't about leveling the playing field. It's a ploy to appease the SEC and keep their teams in the playoff conversation, even when they stumble and lose. The timing is all too convenient. After all of the offseason noise, the coaches live tweeting games about how boring they were, the committee hands them a system that rewards their narratives. It's politics. It's not fairness. And it's frustrating for fans who just want an even shot at the playoff. Let's really hammer this home. The last issue is there is no quantifiable metric for strength of schedule. We should all agree. Look, I'll take off the hater hat for a minute. We should all agree the SEC schedule, on average, is tougher than anyone else's. There is no denying that. Having to play Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Texas, other programs in the SEC is brutal compared to what the ACC has to do or the Big 12 has to do or even the Big 10. But here's the question. How much tougher? How do you quantify it? How do you measure that? Is it worth 1 win? Is it worth 2 wins? Is it worth a whole ranking tier? Without a clear data-driven system like RPI in baseball or KenPom in basketball, it's all theoretical. It's fantasy football. It's not real analysis. A transparent metric would at least allow us to compare schedules objectively. But instead, we're stuck with subjective decisions that are made in secret. That's not just unfair, that's indefensible. Here's the irony of the whole thing, which is super rich. Alabama, the loudest complainer out of all of this, talking about strength of schedule is hilarious. They didn't lose to the Georgias of the world last year. They didn't lose to great teams. Their losses, Tennessee, I'll give you that one. But Vanderbilt and a downright awful Oklahoma team? If Bama had just won one of those games that they were supposed to, they wouldn't need to lean on this tough schedule excuse. Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin's incessant whining. If you beat Florida, who was a 500 team when you played them, you're not worried about any of that. You go into the swamp and win, you're in the playoff. They're whining about not getting credit for playing strong teams, but their stumbles came against the bad ones. Had they handled business, they'd certainly have been in the playoff. With or without this rule change, it's almost comical that they're the poster child for why this new system is flawed. At the end of the day, though, even with a discernible metric, even with all of that, college football is ultimately about the results on the field. I might even agree, I would bet on Alabama at 9-3 against an 11-1 Indiana team in a hypothetical matchup. SEC teams remain undefeated in hypothetical matchups. But when you finish 5th, 6th, or 7th in your conference, you truly just have not earned the right to prove it on the field. I don't know. I don't think that Indiana could win a national title, but if their only loss on the season was to a national championship winning Ohio State team, I certainly have more confidence that they could get it done than the 5th or 6th team in some other conference. This isn't about the Vegas odds or gut feelings. It's the only major sport in America, men's basketball and baseball included, that doesn't have a clear-cut objective system to judge teams. Instead, it's all decided behind closed doors, and that's disgusting. Fans deserve a system that is both fair and transparent and ultimately bases what happens on results that take place on the field. This strength of schedule obsession is a step backwards, and it's time for the committee or whoever takes over college football soon to do better. What do you think about this? I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to hear your comments. Am I too far one way or the other on this? I don't love this for our sport. At the end of the day, your results on the field have to matter. They just do. We will have situations this year where 3- and 4-loss SEC teams are talked about and moved ahead of 1- and 2-loss teams in other conferences. And in some situations, that's fine. I wasn't calling out 2-loss Georgia for being ahead of 1-loss Indiana. That was never my point. I wasn't saying that Miami deserved to be in over Alabama. I thought Alabama was probably a little bit better than Miami last year. Both of them having their warts and their flaws. But the idea that a team can lose 3 or 4 games, and just because they played tough opponents, that somehow trumps what another team does, when from year to year, a team cannot impact their schedule, is ludicrous. It's asinine. Minimizing losses, taking away what really matters, taking away the passion and the thrill and why you have to give your all every weekend in college football is ruining the sport. It's not NIL. It's not the transfer portal. It's not this, that, and the other. Taking away the sting from losses. You think about that Texas-Ohio State game to start things off. That game doesn't matter at all. The loss, whoever takes it, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter one bit. Part of that's due to the college football playoffs expansion, but a lot of it's to do with this. A lot of it is to do with us killing the regular season. And this is another step in that direction. When you literally write in your press conference to minimize or devalue the impact of good losses, quality losses that people joke about, that's absurd. You have 4 quality losses, you don't deserve a chance to go play for the championship. I don't care who somebody else played. Now, you might be an SEC fan. You might disagree with this. You might think, well, he's just ranting because he hates the SEC or he wants to be in it. He wants his team to be out. None of that matters. But when we are saying that results on the field no longer matter and we are going with the Vegas odds to tell us who may or may not win any given week, that's just not what our sport has ever been. The Chiefs don't just automatically get to win the division crown because we think Patrick Mahomes would win a theoretical matchup. They've got to go out and win. And why our sport is so much different in that regard, I'll never know. I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. I'd love if you joined us here at College Football Addiction. Listen, you may be an SEC fan and you may hate this. Still love if you joined us because we enjoy talking ball 365 days a year. So hit the subscribe button. Appreciate you guys, as always, for tuning in. And we'll talk to you soon on College Football Addiction.